Bro, that's funny. Okay, cool. So we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome to the Nashville Number System class. So in this class, we have quite a bit of time. So we'll go pretty much from basic all the way until a little bit of intermediate stuff. We won't get too crazy with it here, but just enough so that everyone can understand at least what the number system is, why it's useful, and then be able to play it in different keys. We have a song that we're gonna actually transcribe here as well together that we can take home with us. So, I think we already kind of got a gauge of where everyone's at. Some people don't know anything about the number system at all. Some people are like, yeah, I already got it. Like, I'm just here to, just see what's up. So we'll start from the way beginning, all right? So the important thing to know with the number system is something called scales. So if you know your scales, the number system is very easy, all right? So we're gonna start with a basic scale here. The C scale is gonna be C, B, E, F, G, A, B, C. The C scale is nice because there's no flats, no sharps, none of that crazy stuff that people like doing. And so there's two ways to approach this. There's something called the solfege system, which, how many of y'all know what the solfege system is? Okay, how many of you guys know what do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do? Yeah, exactly. So that's the technical name for it. So when we sing do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, we're singing a scale, all right? So if I start with do, can everyone else sing the rest of the scale? Re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. Perfect. You just sang a scale. That's great. Cool. So that is what we call a scale. So I'm gonna write the notes that we just sang under each note here. Fa, sol, la, ti, do. Perfect. So each note, each solfege that we just sang corresponds to one note in each scale. So when we sing do in this case, let me actually play C real quick. So do is C, right? Yeah. So then re is D, so re would be re. And then we go to mi. Mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Let's go backwards. Do, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Perfect. So we have that scale down. All we're gonna do now is we're gonna put numbers in instead of solfege. Right? So do is the key that we're in. That's the key signature. So in this case, we're in the key of C. So that is going to be the number one. Then we're just gonna go up our number system. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then since this note is the same as this note, we'll classify that as 1. Make sense so far? Yeah, cool. So we're gonna do the same thing we just did with do, re, mi, but now we're gonna use the numbers instead. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There it is, right? So each number correlates to a specific note in your scale. So if I said, what is the 1 in the key of C, what note would I be referring to?
C. C.
Yeah. If I said, what's the 2 in the key of C, what note would I be referring to?
D.
Perfect. If I said, what's the 4, what note would that be?
F.
Perfect. If I said, what's the 6, what note would that be?
A.
Exactly. So when people are calling out numbers, they're referring to specific notes in the scale. Now there's two elements of this. There's notes and then there's chords. Chords we'll get into in a second, but the notes is kind of the foundation of what we're gonna do. So, any questions so far? Yes, sir.
One kind of right away. So for your sharps and flats, you put 2 sharp, 2 flat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And we'll hammer in on that a little bit more, but exactly. Cool. Any other questions? Sweet. Now, what we're gonna do here is we're gonna change the scale. This is where it gets fun. Someone shout out a note for me. Any note?
E.
F.
E. I heard E first, so we'll go with E. You said F flat? Oh, A flat. Okay. Does anybody know what the scale is in E? Or the major scale?
F sharp.
F sharp. G.
G sharp.
G sharp.
A.
E.
C.
Sharp.
C sharp.
Uh-huh.
D sharp.
D sharp.
And
And E.
So one thing you'll notice about scales is that every scale goes from A to G in music. There's only A through G. There's no H or Z or, okay, sometimes I'll tell my band go to Z just to see how they
I don't know, I've heard some bad notes before.
they're like K
I've played
flat.
them.
Play what's not there.
They're probably playing a K flat or something. So.
Flat.
And then there's a rock band.
You
never know what.
Well, you get into some interesting stuff when you turn, so A is 440, like normal tuning, but then you can like detune, and then you get into like micro,
Yeah.
But every scale is gonna have some combination of A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. So even though we started with E here, we still have E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. That's for scales, maybe we can talk about that a little bit later, but just as a concept, so we all know. So in this case, we're in the key of E, so E is going to be our 1. So if E is our 1 here, what's 2? Sharp. What's 5?
B.
What's 7?
D sharp.
What's 3?
G sharp.
Cool. What's 4?
A.
Perfect. So you see that every number correlates to a note in the major scale. Any questions so far? Yeah.
So there's not a full step between each one of them. Like it's like if you go, okay, I'm doing white keys is C.
For sure.
So if I go from C to D,
Uh-huh.
there's a whole step.
Yeah.
From D to E, there's a whole step.
Yeah.
But when I go from E to F,
Oh, yeah, in terms of the scales. Yeah.
and it's like it does the same thing between B and C.
Yeah. So for the numbers, it ignores that because it only focuses on the notes themselves.
Okay.
But if we're talking about the scales, then that would absolutely be fine.
Okay.
Yep. Mhm.
You know, and there's a half step between 3 and 4 and 7, 8 always is, when you don't know what you're looking at, you know, if you figure it out real quick.
Absolutely. Let's actually do this. Let's. How many of you guys would benefit from learning how to play a major scale if we went through it right now?
How to play what?
The major scale, or how to find the major scale in your scale.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Mhm.
Perfect. Okay, we'll come back to this. We'll come back to that. So the major scale can be defined with a pattern. So I'm gonna draw a little keyboard here. I'm not an art major, so this is probably gonna be horrible, but this is the best I've got.
It's all right to us.
It's a Picasso.
We should put this in a museum.
That's a Steinway, right?
It is, it is a Steinway actually. Oh,
Okay.
I'm missing one. All right, okay. Yes.
That's good.
Perfect. Someone call the Columbus Museum of Art. Okay. Can everyone somewhat see this?
Yes.
People right
Yeah.
here? Okay, perfect. Somewhat. Okay, so we're gonna play the C major scale, and I'm gonna walk you guys through what this pattern is. So, we know C, the C scale is all the white keys. So C, D, E, F, G, A, E, C. So, you may be wondering, okay, how did we figure that out? So, the scale is performed with a certain pattern. It's whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So what that means is, from the key that we start in, which is in this case is C, we're gonna perform what's called a whole step. A whole step means that if you were to go chromatically up the keyboard, chromatically just means if you were to play every single note from left to right, you're gonna skip one of those notes to get to the next note. So if we're in C, the next logical key is actually C sharp. But with the whole step, we're gonna skip C sharp and go straight to the next note, which is D. Make sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Now a half step, write this down real quick. With a half step, you go straight to the next key, whatever the next key happens to be. Next. So in this case, if we have C and we had a half step, we would go straight to the next key, which is C sharp. Right, okay so far?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So let's play out the C major scale. So when we start with C, the first thing we're gonna do is skip a step. So in C, if we skip a step, what note do we get to?
D.
D, because we skipped C sharp. And then the next thing here is another whole step. So we're in D right now. So if we do a whole step from D, where do we end up?
E.
E, because we skipped D. It's not here. Now we need a half step. So we're gonna go from E to the note right next to E, which in this case would be, because we're not gonna skip that. Then we got 3 more whole steps. So from F, a whole step would be G. From G, a whole step would be
A.
From A, a whole step would be
B.
It looks like a
Looks
B.
like a
right?
B.
Oh man, this is a B. These whiteboards and these markers don't work well together. Okay, so we're in B right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have a half step. So what's the note right next to it?
C.
So that's how we get the C major scale. So now the same concept applies in any key that we happen to be in. So let's just say we're in the key of, let's use D. So we start in D. Now the first thing we want to do is a whole step. So from D, a whole step would be
E.
E. Perfect. So we got that. Whew. Now from E, we want a whole step.
F sharp.
F sharp.
Sharp.
Oh.
Exactly. So now we do that because from E, if we skip a note, we're actually going to skip F and go to the next note, which happens to be F sharp. Following so far?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Perfect. So we did these two. So the next thing is a half step. So we're at F sharp right now. What would be the next note next to F?
G.
Close.
G sharp.
Close. It'd be G.
G. Oh, G.
Yeah.
Oh, half step. Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Yep. We put them on here. Yeah, so half step. So G is the next note right next to F sharp. And then we have a whole step from F sharp. From G, I'm sorry. A. And then we have another whole step from A.
B.
Mhm. And then we have one more whole step from B.
C.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I thought the last one was half.
C sharp.
C sharp, yeah.
C sharp, yeah. So we're here right now, sorry. I put it in that,
Okay.
but we're on the last whole step here.
Oh, gotcha, yeah, alright.
Yeah, so from B, our whole step would be C sharp, because we're gonna skip C in order to get to C sharp. And then the last half step from C sharp would be
D.
and that's how we get back. Any questions?
I got another one.
Yeah.
So from 1 to 2 is always a whole, or from do to re is always a whole. 2 to 3 is a whole, re to mi. 3 to 4 is always a half, mi to fa, and whatever, you just correspond to your keys and whatever. Okay.
So,
Do you- in
3,
the
4, 7,
Mideast-
and 8.
yeah.
In the Mideast, they use different scales.
Yes.
Do you
Yeah.
know if the keyboard in Mideast is different, or is it that one and they learn it?
I think it's tuned differently. So like they have, like
That
I
makes
think
sense.
it's,
Yeah.
I think A isn't 440, which is what we're used to here. But even like the notes, so like the interval from C to C sharp, we use something called equal temperament. So it's all the same distance between each note. But I think in the Middle East, some of them are shorter and some of them are longer. So playing C sharp here would be different than playing C sharp over there, which it's a whole kind of music theory thing. And
Different deal.
yeah, but yeah, it's a good point though.
That's every major scale is whole, half, whole, half.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So here's where it correlates to the numbers, is what you were talking about. So from 1 to 2 is always going to be a whole. 2 to 3 is a whole. 3 to 4 is a half. 4 to 5 is whole. 5 to 6 is whole. 6 to 7 is whole. 7 to 1 is half. So now, no matter what key you're in, if I say, let's play in B flat, you know, okay, if I want to get to the 2, I need to take a whole step. If I want to go from the 3 to the 4, I know that that's a half step. Right? So music is about formulas, and formulas help us to really master what it is that we're trying to do. So, any questions so far? All right, good?
I'm glad you're not using a guitar for reference.
Oh, that's true. Like, all right, so the 4th fret on the. Oh, sorry.
Go up
You want to take any pictures?
B to C is.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. So next, we're gonna talk about chords, and this is where it really applies to guitar, piano, and all this other stuff. What you were referring to, Shakita, right?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Sometimes keyboard players will use numbers for their bass player. Because, for example, if they want to play a 5, but they want the bass player to play 7, then they'll say 7, but it's for them to know, okay, hey, play a 7 instead of, our 5. But we'll get into that here in a second. Yeah. Cool. All right. Now, we're going to learn about chords. Hooray. Can I erase this? Is everybody okay?
Yeah.
All right. So, in the same way that scales have a set pattern, when we talk about chords in every key, there's a set, every chord kind of has an assigned major, minor, diminished kind of classification, let's put it that way. So chords, we have major, we have minor, and we have diminished. Okay. There's way more than these, but these are what we're gonna use for the most part. That's a lot. There's a lot more. But so each, let's go back to C actually. Back to C. Okay. So each number has a chord association attached to it. All right. So most times, whenever you hear the 1, does anyone know what classification of chord you might be playing?
Like a thirds, like 1, 3, 5.
So like major, minor, diminished.
Oh, major.
Major. Yeah.
Okay.
The ones usually major. Okay. Now, I'm gonna tell you why. So, okay, yeah. Yeah, let's do this. Okay, so chords in a scale, the easiest way to think about it is you're gonna form your chord based on playing 3 notes. They're called triads. So triads, which means 3 notes played together. Played together. So what we're gonna do for the sake of the scale is we're gonna start with our first note, whatever that first note may be. We're gonna skip a note, then the next note, skip a note, and play the next note. So 1, 3, 5. So in the key of C, our C triad or our C chord is gonna be C, we're gonna skip D, we're gonna play E, we're gonna skip F, we're gonna play G. So C, E, G, or 1, 3, 5. 1, 3, 5 is your first chord. Now, if I play C, E, G, oh, this is classified as a major chord, right? Normally people can tell major chords and minor chords by happy or sad, right? So like there's this, and then there's this, right? Just take it.
I've said all sad.
All right, right. I don't know. Some people in the seasons are like, this is happening. So this versus this, right? So C, E, G is a major chord because it's a happy chord. So I'm gonna erase this now. Okay. So our first chord, our 1, is usually going to be major. I'll use capital M for major, lowercase m for minor. Because we're using C, E, and G, or 1, 3, and 5. Now using this same logic, if we go to the 2, what notes will we be using in the 2 triad?
2, 4, 6.
2, 4, 6.
2, 4, 6.
Perfect, yep. So we would have D, F, and A, or 2, 4, and 6. Now, does this sound happy or sad?
Sad.
So the 2 is going to be minor. So we're going to use lowercase m, sad m. So we're going to do the same thing for the 3rd, which is E in this case. So what notes would be the triad? Start with
E, G, B.
3, 5, 7.
B, or 3, 5, 7. Is this happy or sad?
Sad.
So that makes this major or minor? Minor. Now, let's start with F, same thing here. What notes do we have for F?
F, A, C.
So F, A, C, or 4, 6, 1. I heard everybody say it already. It is gonna be major.
Happy.
Cool. We're gonna make this major. Cool. Now what about starting in G or the 5? Remember that C is also duplicated here, so you can come back this way.
So it'll be a G, C, E. Well, no. It'll be a G, be a G, B,
If you were to start with, instead of doing this C, you would start with 2.
G, B, D, yeah.
Exactly. So G, B, D, or 5, 7, 2. This is a workout, yo. Okay, now we have the 6. So we're starting with A. So what notes would those be?
A, C, E.
A, C, D.
A, C,
close.
E.
So we got A,
A, C, E.
C, E.
ACE.
C, E.
Okay.
Mhm. So we got A, C, E, or the 6, the 1, and the 3.
Have a
Next time.
major.
Major?
No, minor.
Minor.
Yeah, exactly. Minor. Cool. Now we have one more. This one, I'm just gonna tell you guys what this is because this one's a little different. When we get to the 7, normally, it's gonna be 7 to and F, right?
D, D, F.
Yep, exactly. So E, D, and F, or 7, 2, and 4. So, what is this?
Minor.
It's happy.
Diminished.
Well, it's minor.
Minor.
It's minor, but
So,
it's kind of like it's like
Yeah.
it's in between.
it's like an in-between, right?
Yeah.
So,
Seventh.
7, right? So, the 7 is always something called diminished. Alright. Now the reason it's called diminished is because it's, it's like playing a minor chord, but I'm gonna take the last note, which in this case is the 4, and I'm gonna bring it down. So, we don't have to learn the theory behind it, but it's diminished. It's the 7.
Diminished. Okay. So how do you write diminished? It's big M is major, little m is minor.
So
What is
you,
diminished?
you'll usually see people write dim.
Oh, dim. Okay.
So if you ever see someone write something dim,
Okay.
that's what they're referring to. Diminished.
Don't they often use pluses and minuses for, in the wheel
Yeah.
versus all the different in it and so on?
Yeah. There's a lot of different ways you'll see people write this stuff as well. But in most of the charts that we see, you'll probably see like M, lowercase m, or capital M, or DIM, or some people write just D for diminished. But yeah, there's a ton of different ways. Music theory goes super deep. Super deep.
Keep us on the, by the
Yeah,
shore.
absolutely. Absolutely. So does this make sense to everybody so far?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
For the 7th, did they not follow the pattern because it didn't sound right?
So they did. So you have B, and then D, and then F.
It wouldn't.
Yeah, it's weird. So most people in music don't use the diminished chord at all, especially in like gospel music, CCM music. You'll never really hear like, I will sing of the goodness of God. Like that'd be like, what's going on?
Wouldn't
Right?
sound too happy.
Yeah.
So that's a transition chord.
It is. It
It
is.
would go to lead to another.
Exactly. So you might hear someone do like or you can do
Yeah, I like that.
right. You might hear stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's like a
But they
transition.
love it in blues and jazz.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
good.
If you listen to jazz, blues, some
R&B,
gospel stuff, you'll hear a lot of that.
Yeah.
So those are diminished chords that we're
Okay.
adding. But for the most part, in the CCM world, we'll never use 7 diminished at all. Yeah, but diminished are transition chords, absolutely.
We aren't covering it, does that go the same way for augmented?
It does, but we won't cover it in this.
Okay.
Yeah. Augmented, there's like extensions, 7s, 9s, sharp 11s, all that stuff, 13s. Yeah. Music theory is deep. Then there's like fully diminished and half diminished. Yeah. So, okay, so as long as this makes sense so far, what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go through some different keys and then outline whether they're major, minor, or diminished for the sake of this. So if I said, hey, we're in the key of C, I want you to play the 1, would you be playing a major or a minor?
Major.
And then what chord would you be playing? What's the name of the chord you play?
C major.
So you're playing the C major chord. Now if I said, hey, let's play the 4, would you be playing a major or a minor?
Major.
What note would you be playing? Or
F
what-
major.
F major.
F major, exactly. If I said, hey, let's play a 6, major or minor?
Minor.
And what chord would you be playing?
A minor.
Exactly. 5. So is the 5 major or minor?
Major.
And then what chord would you be
G
playing?
G
major.
major.
Cool. Now if I said, hey, let's play the 2, major or minor?
Minor.
Minor.
What note would you be playing?
D
D minor.
Perfect. This is where the number system really comes into play.
That was good.
Cool. So, is anyone need to take a picture of this? I'm gonna erase this in a second.
Wait,
I'm just gonna copy something.
Alright, go ahead.
Cool. Sweet.
So the 1, the 4, and the 5 are the major chords, or the most common chords in the key.
Mhm.
Your 6 would be your relative minor, and your 2 would be your secondary minor. There's the one that comes up to half as often in just about any type of music all the time.
Exactly. Yep. So I'm actually gonna write that here on the side of the section.
It's confusing with facts.
You're right.
Okay, so I just, maybe it's just me,
That's okay.
but I just figured out something from what you were doing, right?
Uh-huh.
So when you did the major chords, like C, E, G, going to up the scale, it's like each one of the numbers increased by 1. So if we were in A, and you asked what was the next chord in that, if you add 1 to each one of those, to 6, 1, and 3, you get to 7, 2, 4.
There you go.
And if C, E, G, if you add a 1, 1, 1 to the 1, 3, 5, you get to 2, 4, 6.
Perfect. Exactly. There you go.
Okay.
That's great. Good job. You got it. Awesome. Wait, did someone just play applause? That was great. Exactly.
Okay.
So a 1, 3, 5, a 2, 4, 6, you're just adding 1.
That makes more
2,
sense
5,
to
7.
me.
Now, where it kind of loses its values when you get to like the 7 and the 1.
Because the 8 is the 1. So when you add the 1, that's when you add the 1 to the 7, you get the 8. So that when you add the 1 to the 7 and the 7 to 4, you'll be back at the 1.
At the 1. Exactly. Yep.
Ain't nobody told us that before. I'm just kidding.
So this is why you'll hear people do things like in C, they'll just go. This is exactly
Easy
what
to
it's
see.
going. Yeah, they're just adding one every time. That's it, right? So in C it's easy because it's kind of there for you. But once we start getting into the A flats and the C sharps, that's where it gets a little different. So in summary, your major chords are usually going to be the 1, the 4, and the 5. Your minor chords are going to be the 2, the 3, and the 6. And then your diminished chord is the 7. So in most genres of music, anytime someone says a 5, they're usually telling you to play a major chord. If they say play a 2, they're usually telling you to play a minor chord, or a 6. If they say play a 4, they're usually telling you to play a major chord. Now, again, with the 7, we're gonna talk about what actually applies most times in our music, but cool.
That's good.
Yeah, this is fun. You guys are doing great. You guys are doing awesome. This is fun. Okay, so we're gonna change the key. So, somebody give me a key. Any key? A, nice. A is probably playing wise on keys my least favorite key, but I love hearing the key of A.
Give me a G. G is my
E flat.
A flat. Let's do you know what? Let's do G first, and then we'll do A as a challenge.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take some chord, man.
No, you're good. You're good. This is
You just don't like A.
right. That's exactly it.
A version.
Anything but A, please. Okay. So using the major scale, if we were to follow the whole half, we would end up with G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. So the last, from E to F sharp is a whole step. So if we look back on this keyboard, E, we're gonna skip one. That's how we end up at F sharp. So in this case, if I said, play the 4, are we talking about a major chord or a minor chord?
Major.
And what chord would I be suggesting?
C major.
If I say, hey guys, let's play the 6, major or minor?
Minor.
What chord?
E minor.
If I said, let's play the 2, major or minor?
Minor.
What chord?
A minor.
Cool. Let's go back to the 1, major or minor?
Major.
What chord?
G.
There we go. Make sense so far?
Mhm.
All right, let's go to the key that I cannot stand to play in. And when I write it out, you'll see why. For those who play keys.
Just raised it a whole step.
Yeah, exactly. Set the transpose button real quick. Perfect. There we go. All right, so we have all these sharps and stuff in here, which is spooky, right? So, if I said, let's play the 1, major or minor?
Major.
What chord?
A major.
Cool. What's the 6, major or minor?
Minor.
Cool. 3, major or minor?
Minor.
What chord?
C sharp minor.
Good. 5, major or minor?
Major.
What chord?
E major.
Cool. The 4, major or minor?
Major.
What chord?
D major.
Yeah.
I forgot to add that here. We got tweet now. Cool. So does that make sense so far? Okay, cool. Now we're gonna analyze the 7, and then in some cases the 3 does this too. So in most of the CCM music, gospel music, pop music, things like that, we generally don't use the 7 diminished, and in some cases, we don't use the 3 minor. Instead, what you might see is something like this. You might see something like this, or something like this.
Okay, so explain that fraction.
5/7. No, it's fine. So what they're saying here is they want the first chord in this fraction is the chord that they want you to play. The second note in this fraction, or number in this fraction, is your lowest note or your bass note. in most cases.
Say that again.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So the first number in the fraction is the chord that they want you to play. So in the case of a 5, we call this 5/7. And so in this case, 5 is the chord that they want.
So E.
In this case,
Major.
exactly.
Okay.
But your lowest note or your bass player is gonna play the second number, which is exactly for the 7.
Okay.
Okay, so.
I get it.
Okay.
Because, okay, so in my mind, so if that's that chord, right, the 5/7, which means, I think, that means that I'm playing on piano, E, G sharp, B.
Correct.
The bass player is gonna play the G sharp.
Or
That's
you
what-
can also play in the left hand, you can also play that.
Yeah.
We grow into that.
So what would that be then for like acoustic guitar? If
Okay.
I'm just playing the top
H.
number.
Yeah.
It's just the E minor.
So yeah. So in most cases, you're just playing this chord here,
Okay.
which is just E minor.
So like I'll see like a G over B.
Yeah.
So I'm only playing
Just
Yeah, okay.
Yep, so in the case, so let me
Only
write
playing a part of
Or
the G.
the bottom
Okay.
G off.
Yeah, okay.
Nobody knows.
So I don't even need to pay attention to that, okay.
Nobody notices.
Yeah,
Unless
okay.
you wanna yell to your bass player.
Right.
So,
Okay.
For that font.
so on the piano, so if I'm doing that chord, that 5, so my bass, it's like sometimes you try not to clash the bass of the bass, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
With the piano, so do I need to play the E root in the bass, or do I need to play, what do I need to play in
Yeah.
the root for that chord?
That's good, that's good. So we're in A right now. Oh, great, I should have picked G. Okay. So we're in A, right? And in this case, I wanna do a 5/7, right? So the 5 is gonna be what chord?
A chord.
E, G sharp, B.
Yeah, so I'm playing E major right now. Now, if I see 5/7, in most cases, as a keyboard player, as an acoustic guitar player, as electric guitar player, I'm just gonna stick with the 5. I'm not gonna pay attention to this.
Okay.
Now, in the case of those same instruments, if you wanna follow along, all you would do then is play the 5 with one hand, and then play the note 7 on your left hand, which in this case would be
The G
G sharp.
Okay.
So I'm gonna play E major on my right, G sharp on my left.
Okay.
Okay.
So this chord is different from this chord, right?
Yeah,
So
okay.
in most cases, you can ignore it, but if you want to follow along, all they're saying is your lowest note is going to be the second number here.
Okay.
You sort of double it on the E note, E chord though, when you put a 7 until you double the third.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So in most cases, like I would play it, I would just move that to the bottom instead. So I still have 3 notes, but instead of 4, I guess. But yeah, exactly.
So in most cases, nobody would notice unless there were 6 of you up there and you all did that added note, then it would be noticed.
Exactly.
Most everybody in a group hides behind.
Hides behind it.
Everybody else.
Yeah, yeah. And so normally we'll generally say it's important that the bass player especially follows this second note. Because most of the time, if everybody.
You think you get the timing right?
Shots fired.
You know that the bass player's always on the front porch.
Right, exactly.
The bass player's the guy lost in the corner.
Yeah, often, yeah. So I play bass primarily, and I understand the bass player struggle because we're always in the back, or we're always like off to the side somewhere. But we, in this case, control so much of the music because we can, let's say we play 4, 5, 1, and everybody does that. But then the bass player does this 4, and then they go 7, 1. One person changed their note, but it affected the entire chord section.
It's almost like a lead in again too, like your diminisher. Okay.
You wanna make it interesting, double the 7th.
Says there's something else happening.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't fit, but it says there's gotta be something else to resolve it.
Exactly. So a lot of these type of overs, 5/7, 1/3, are usually transition chords as well. So in the case of 1/3, if you play acoustic or piano or lead, you're gonna be playing the 1, which in the key of A would be. Yeah. It would be A. So then, if we have a 1/3, that means your left hand or your bass player would be playing what note?
C sharp.
So instead of playing
So they would be playing A, C sharp, E in the right hand. The bass would be your third, which would be your E. Oh, you say 1/3?
Yeah. So the 3 in this case.
Oh, C sharp, okay.
And you'd see that as an A over C sharp in a traditional chord.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay.
So in this case, where did I put them? In this case, you might see
for some free.
So in A, if you were to see E over G sharp, it would be saying 5 over 7.
Okay,
If you were to see A over C sharp, it'd be saying play the 1
over 3, okay.
B, C sharp.
That makes sense? Okay?
Oh, yeah, that does, makes a lot of sense.
Cool.
You might comment on why it's the same notes of the chord,
Mhm.
but when you change that bass note, the attraction between that C sharp wanting to move to the next note, you haven't really changed that chord, but you've caused a magnetic attraction, and that's what makes it transition so well.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. That's very true. That's very true. So, this is the part that you just mentioned, which is really cool. So, generally speaking, this bass note, this is kind of sub Nashville number system, but this is just something to keep in mind. For example, this bass note wants to go to the next note in the scale.
Mm-hmm.
So if I play a 7, a 5 over 7, this 7 wants to take me back to the 1.
Mm-hmm.
And this 3 wants to take me to the 4.
Mm-hmm.
I'll demonstrate.
Mm-hmm.
So if I play, this is the 1, and then I play this.
Ah.
Everyone's there. That's the 4, right? So this note wants to take me to the next note in the scale, or the next chord, right? So normally when you see A over C sharp or B over, F or whatever it may be, it's because it wants to take you somewhere else. If we do this 5 over 7,
Resolve.
it wants to take me somewhere. So your
Yeah,
bass,
resolve.
exactly, yep. So your bass note is probably gonna take you to the next chord, or the next note in that.
So if you're coming from the upper to the lower, then it would want to take you, you would feel it taking you to the lower, because you're coming from up, down?
Like, in what sense? Like,
Well, let's say you were do, what if you're going do, and then odd one, and then it would
Yeah.
want to lead you lower.
yeah, so it could, it definitely could.
Or you go higher.
Yeah, so for most people, this, for example, will want to take you higher.
But you're coming from the lower up. What if you were coming from the upper down?
Oh, I see. Okay, so,
Or was that called something different?
like something like that?
Yeah, you're coming from the up and down, now you would feel it wanting to take.
Yeah, pulling the other way. Yeah, it's definitely possible. Yeah. It depends on, I feel like in that case, you would need 2 of those chords put together. So like if you just played 5 over 7 as it is, for most people it want to go back up. But if I did this and then I did this, then naturally it would want to pull me back the other way.
Just because it's a transition feel,
Exactly.
which actually would help with songwriting or note writing,
Mhm.
music writing, because then you can play around with it if you wanted to do that.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. How you guys feeling?
Yeah, good.
Doing good. Deep sigh, deep breaths. Okay, so when I was talking about this whole 7 situation, most times you won't see 7 diminished. You'll see something like this. So if there's ever a 7, it's usually going to be a 5 over 7. So if you play a melodic instrument, guitar, piano, you're probably going to play a 5. You can add the 7 if you'd like to. But if you play bass, then you're going to be in charge of that 7. That's your job. Yeah. So we're going to do an exercise if everybody feels okay so far. Alright, so I'll make sure I didn't lose anybody.
We don't have a choice, right?
Right. You guys are trapped in here forever. We're gonna go over the song "Goodness of God" in the key of G and on the back of these, you'll also see like a little chart that we wrote out. which has all the different keys, the scale, and then the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So
Oh,
it's
nice.
right there for you as well.
There's two coming.
No problem.
Ooh, you got a sus, you can tell us about sus.
Oh yeah, what?
And
And then if you wanna pass these two down as well. Yeah, you guys are doing phenomenal.
Yeah, usually I need
All right. So. So we have Goodness of God, again on the back of that little sheet that you guys, if you want to check out. When you take it home, you can for sure. So in this case, Goodness of God, which everybody knows Goodness of God. Right?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So let me see. Okay, so Goodness of God is in the key of G. So G is our 1. So before we begin, let's fill in the rest of the G scale. We're gonna combine everything we've learned now. So in order to do that, we need whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So from G, we want a whole step. So where would that take us?
A.
All right, and then from A, we want a whole step. So where would that take us?
B.
Now from B, we want a half step.
C.
From C, we want a whole step.
D.
Awesome. From D, we want a whole step.
E.
Perfect. Now, from E, we want a whole step.
F sharp.
You guys are geniuses. This is great. Okay, so we have F sharp, and then from F sharp, we want a half step.
G.
Cool. So as you can see in this song here, we have the note names here now, the chord names. We have G's, C's, D over F sharps, all that type of stuff. The other thing we didn't talk about was sus's. Sus is, real quick, it stands for sustained. So instead of having, what's the best way to put this? Let's do it in G. So in G, our regular major chord is 1, 3, 5. All we're gonna do is we're gonna take this 3 and move it up to a 4.
And that's a sustained, you said?
Is it suspended? Is it?
Suspended, yes, yes, suspended.
Okay.
So they have,
Moving it a half step, right? So it makes it a half step,
yeah.
raising a half step versus lowering a half step.
So they have sus chords and then they have sus 2 chords. Again, this is all music theory stuff that we won't really get into too much. But a sus 2 would be, instead of a 4, you play a 2. So when I play it, you'll see why this is so powerful. So if I were playing this song, and I went, it wants to pull me back to, right? So I'm suspending it. It's like suspending something in the air. You're like, ooh, where does it want to go? Let's go back here. All right. Now sus 2 is just taking this 3 and putting it 2 instead.
Just creates tension
Yeah,
and resolves.
it's all about tension. It all just wants to come back to the major chord. Right? So in this, yeah.
I've seen the sus 4, is there one?
Say it again?
sus4, I've seen it, or is
Yeah.
that
I've seen it.
really
So-
non-existent?
Yeah, so sus4 is usually the same as sus. They just take the 4 out. Because most people
So
don't
I've
use,
heard that.
yeah, most people don't use sus2. They'll say like, they'll usually write a 9, like extension, which is called a 9. Again, all this other stuff. But yeah, so sus is usually sus4.
Wait, so a C add 9 is just a C.
Yeah.
And the difference between a sus and an augment,
Say it again?
difference between a sus and an augment.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother. So sus is this. Augmented is this, which is a whole different art form. But yes, a 9 is essentially a 2 because
Yes.
if we kept this
1, 2,
going,
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
9.
Got you.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
So that's where extensions come in.
Going into the half steps instead of the whole steps.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Exactly. So we're gonna go through the intro and the verse together, and then I want you guys to do the chorus and the bridge by yourselves. So all we're gonna do is just write above it or next to it the number that correlates with each chord that we're gonna talk about. All right. Oh, does everyone have a pen?
No.
Oh, dang. Okay. All right. We'll do this. We'll do this together. I forgot to get pens. I'm sorry.
I have an extra pen.
Give you $1 for it.
I'll rent it for $1. Never needs it really.
If you give me a hamburger today, I'd gladly repay you on Tuesday.
Okay. Verse G. C. G. Perfect. Okay. So we'll do this together. So we want to write this in numbers. I don't know letters. I'm in your band. I have no idea what's going on. Hey guys, I can't play with you guys unless it's in numbers. You guys are like, great, we'll help you out. We already know this. So if we're doing the intro, what number correlates to G here?
1.
So instead of G, I can write 1. Now, G sus is still just the
1.
1. Yeah, okay. It's just the 1 sustain. Because really, we don't really care about the sus, diminished, all that type of stuff. We just care about the chord name itself. And then we're going back to G, which is
1.
So now, instead of writing G sus G, we can,
Holy chord.
we can, yeah, most holy chord ever. We can just write 1 sus 1. Alright, everybody follow so far?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Now, let's get into the fun stuff. So the verse starts with G, which would be
1.
and then it goes to C.
4.
Perfect. And then to G.
1.
Awesome. And then it goes to D over F sharp.
5/7.
5, 7.
Yup. It goes to the 5 over the 7, and then goes to E minor, which would be 6 minor. Perfect. Then it goes to C.
4.
Then it goes to D. Perfect. Then it goes to E minor.
6.
C.
4.
G.
1.
D over F sharp again.
5, 7. 5 over 7.
E minor.
6.
C.
4.
D.
5.
G.
1.
You just played the whole song using numbers.
So do you put like minor or sharp or something next to the number Or it's just I'm gonna automatically know that that's what it's gonna be as a minor?
Yeah, exactly.
Unless it diverges from the
norm. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So in this case, they didn't have to put E minor because you would
It's a
know it's an
minor
E
key.
minor naturally.
Okay.
Yeah, well, at least for the numbers, yeah, you wouldn't have to
Right.
put it for the numbers. You may for the note,
But would it be, sorry, would it be strange, I mean, if you were marking it out for yourself or putting it together for a band and not knowing the difference, would it be problematic or would to put in the minors or?
Nah, you can still put it in there.
Okay.
Yeah, they would still know.
Okay.
They would still know that it actually might help some people out.
Okay, I was just,
Yeah, but like you said, the difference is if we divert from that. So for example, if instead of doing 6 minor, I want us to play 6 major instead, for some reason, then I would actually have to outline 6 and then have to put a capital M. So everyone knows, oh, it's the major version of this chord.
So instead of E minor, then we'll find E.
Or 6 plus.
Yeah, or 6 plus.
6 plus and minors usually sometimes as a minus.
Yeah.
6 plus minus, that's one way to get around having to write everything out.
Writing it out, exactly. Yep. Everybody follow so far? Cool. So I'm gonna play this song on keys. I'm not gonna look at the chart. I want you guys to call out the numbers to me. So I'm playing in G. So let's start with the intro. So what am I playing first?
1.
Cool. Let's go to the verse.
1,
1, 4,
5 over 7,
5, 6, 4, 1, 5 over 7, 6, 4, 5, 1.
I just played the song. I have no idea what the letters are, but because you guys called the numbers, I know exactly what it is. All right. So that's the beauty of the number system. If I said, hey, let's play this in B flat right now,
Oh.
and you called the numbers, so call the numbers for me.
1,
1,
1 and 7.
1,
And then let's go to the verse.
1, 4, 5, 7, 6, 4, 5, 6, 4, 1, 5 over 7, 6, 4, 5, 1.
Play it in any key I want to.
Oh, wow.
And I don't even have to know what the note names of the keys are. As long as I know the scale, which goes back to the way beginning, as long as I know the scale, I can play any song in any key. And all I have to do is write it out one time. Yeah. So realistically, you could, I know no one would ever do this, you could get rid of chord charts and just use number charts, and no matter what key you're in, you can use that same chart like that.
yeah.
Right? So that's the beauty of the number system.
So this, I'm sorry, just go ahead.
You gotta practice.
Yes,
Some of the key signatures are like, like G's 1 sharp, D's 2 sharp.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
You know, one flat is.
Yeah.
Those are some kind of basics
Yeah.
that help you figure out when you're writing all these things out.
Yeah.
You do it in show quicker.
Yeah, that's true.
You can figure it out, it might take a while.
Yeah.
So this would be helpful when you're doing with mixed instruments as well that are tuned to different, because like trumpets are in B flat, and so all they have to know is where they are. Yes, you could have the same, rather than having separate charts. If you're doing like a jazz band, everyone gets the numbers, and you know where it is based on relative.
If you're playing jazz, you're playing what's not there.
Say it again.
If you're playing jazz, you're playing what's not there.
Right.
You can notate it
No
all.
long notes.
You can notate it all if you want to.
Exactly.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Did you tell us where that Nashville number system came from? What's the origin?
All I know is it came from Nashville. I don't know what the background is. Do you know what the background is? The background for the number system, how it came to be, or
Mostly it was down in Nashville, because a lot of the people working in the studios down there, they're from all over, and a lot of them did not read. but most of them, because they grew up playing, they know the basic key signatures. So it made it easier to get a group of people who never played together and 1, 4, 5, and that's the normal thing, so 1, 4, 5, 6, 2, the relative minor, secondary minor,
Yeah.
is the thing you get into it the most, and then, you know, the 3 and the 4 is not as often.
Yeah.
And gospel and bluegrass.
Yeah.
No, it makes it easier when the band is practicing one key and the singer says, oh, that's not my key. They said, okay, well, same numbers, different
people.
Yeah.
I'd also think it's easier to conceptualize, you know, different styles of music, I mean, and different scales. You know, if you're playing a blues lick, you can tell somebody what the numbers are, and it's easier to conceptualize than.
It's also fun because, like, if you're singing a song, you want, and let's say you come to a chorus and you want to you want to go up, raise it by step, you can do that. You never have to change music, and then bring it back down. You're still playing the same numbers, just shifting it in your head.
Exactly.
So why on this do we use Roman numerals rather than?
So, if you can use either or, it doesn't matter, quite
I
honestly.
mean, this is, I literally just made it's small, that's why, so it's minor. I mean, like, this is a huge breakthrough for me.
Yeah,
Because I haven't had piano theory in over 35 years.
Gotcha,
And
yeah.
I'm literally just learning acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
I don't remember my theory, and so for me to see this and all of a sudden, oh, that's why it's lowercase.
Lowercase,
This
gotcha.
is helpful now.
Got you.
Whereas before I would look at this and I was like almost in tears because I didn't know what it meant.
Got it.
But, so then, it's still, I mean, the 2 is always gonna be a minor, whether it's written.
Smaller or,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
So pretty much anything lowercase, that's a great point, actually. Anything lowercase generally is gonna be minor.
Okay.
So if they write like a lowercase m or the